I wonder how everybody's doing out there. Today's can be a little bit different. I've tried to have, at least a topic ready to talk about. And we've covered a lot of ground. And, what are common symptoms? What are we struggling with perimenopause and menopause? Is a roller coaster of a ride? What are our options for treatment? I brought Dr. Heller on, who was amazing. She was great when it comes to options. Wendy came on and talked about, nutrition, functional nutrition, and how that plays into it. We talked about sensory changes with Melanie at New Horizons. So it's been amazing. It's been great. And I hope that it's been helpful. I hope that it's helping to sort of normalize this conversation and help people realize we are not on this alone. We are definitely not in this by ourselves. And it's been great. I love it. And I've tried to have some, useful content when I come and have something prepared. Today is different. I don't have anything prepared. I really just wanted it to be kind of a casual conversation, talk about how people are doing. What have you tried? Have you had conversations? What are you struggling with? Just have an open conversation, an open dialogue. I'm here for questions. And it's interesting, right before I jumped on, a friend of mine so Wendy, Mo, and myself, Wendy and Mo are they're friends of mine. They are just beautiful human beings, and they're hilarious. So Wendy was on with me and did the functional nutrition, and they're just really good people. And we're all kind of, we're in this. We're deep in it, knee deep in this crazy ride. And they're amazing people. And we try to, just recently, we've sort of made an effort to try to connect with each other more often. And I think it's tomorrow, we're supposed to be having another little, little video, and we just get together and talk and support each other. So we were chatting about having the three of us on and just spitballing, right? Just the craziness that is our life. We're moms, we're trying to raise kids, trying to live life, work, and deal with this roller coaster that is menopause. And just before I jumped on, Mo sent me a video from a lady who's on Instagram, and her handle is Just Being Melanie, spelled Melani. And it was hilarious. So she has a We Do Not Care club. She started this, through Instagram, and it's all the things we don't care about, right, today as it relates to perimenopause. And it's just a really wonderful, lighthearted, casual, just hilarious rendition of all the things that, listen, we're just trying to make it out here. And there's just some things we don't care about today. Yeah, we get outside. We don't have, outfits not coordinated. Hair may not be done. Our body's changing. Stuff is crazy. And we don't care because, look, it's hard. It's hard. So and I started following her because I want to support that and give her props for what she's doing. So if there's other folks that you follow, I feel like most of the stuff that I follow is like the dry medicine. And I wish I could be Melanie. So I'm going to follow her and get my dose of sort of the lighthearted side of menopause. Because sometimes you just got to laugh at this, right? Sometimes you just got to be like, look, it is what it is. This is what I got today. This is the best I'm going to do. And that's okay. And she's amazing. If anybody knows her, I would love to like have her on, have a conversation, and just talk about menopause and all the craziness that it is, but in a lighthearted way, because she definitely brings the lighthearted. Again, my inclination is to be more, I'm the doctor, very serious. But I think it's wonderful when we can sort of be jovial and be funny and be lighthearted about what is a really challenging time. So Just Being Melanie, I highly encourage you to follow her. I think, that's her handle. She was hilarious. And again, if anybody knows her, please put us together. I may just send her an instant message anyway. But what else are other people out there? Well, who are you following? What are you finding helpful? I especially want to know about the lighthearted stuff. I don't, I get there's some people out there that's doing great stuff as far as like the medicine and the science, but I would love to know like the lighthearted things. What are you finding that's helping you manage the chaos, right? That's making it a little easier and provides a little bit of levity and a little bit of humor. Because I think we got to do it, right? We got to laugh through this. Because otherwise we'll go crazy. You've got to be able to say, okay, yeah, this is nuts. We're working really hard. We're doing all the things. And you know what? Some days it just isn't coming together, and that's okay. Some days we ache, right? Some days this happens or that happens. We're working hard and we still got the belly fat. We're working hard and we still sleep like shit. It's like, that's okay. It's okay. It's hard. So I want to know who's out there talking about the humor and the levity of all of this craziness. And the other thing I would love to know about is, because one of the things I'm finding as my level of wisdom increases, right? It's like, what is my purpose? What are some long-term goals that I aspire to? What are the things that I want to do? I have a private practice, and obviously I have goals around that, right? I would love to be of service to more people. I'm getting emotional because yesterday was my 1-year anniversary. I opened my direct primary care 1 year ago yesterday. And this has been a dream of mine. I mean, even when I was in medical school, I dreamt about owning my own private practice. I dreamt about doing medicine my way. And it took a really freaking long time to get here, right? Obviously, I was in med school residency. I thought about it. And I've sort of bobbed and weaved and done a lot of things. I've been an employed doc. I've done sport, and I did a fellowship. I did all sports medicine, and then I did urgent care, and I did some online consulting with lifestyle medicine. And each iteration of myself, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to what my true calling and what my purpose is. And doing direct primary care and being of service to women and Black women that have been forgotten in healthcare is my greatest joy. And I love it. And yesterday was my 1-year anniversary. And I have some big goals, right? I have some big hopes to make direct primary care accessible to more people. I recognize that everybody can afford that. And, eventually would love to be able to have some sort of a nonprofit that I can put, if people that have the financial ability would like to provide this for others, set up a nonprofit that monies would go into, somebody else would manage, and there would be a process of how to vet people and be able to sponsor memberships for people that can't afford this, especially in our current climate with funding being pulled from certain organizations and from certain social services. There are a lot of people that are going to get just completely lost. Aetna is pulling out of the ACA. So there's going to be a huge change in how people access care, and being able to be of service to more people is really, really important to me as a long-term goal. And when I think about how do I want to serve, so that's one big, at least business goal of mine. And I feel blessed to have been doing this for a year, and I hope I'm blessed to continue to do it for a really long time and help more people. So I would love to hear what goals people have. I think as we reach this pivotal point in our life, we start to think about, our purpose and longevity, and how do we live a high quality of life for as long as we're blessed. So what are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? Are you learning a new skill? Are you learning a new thing? How are we challenging our brain? How are we keeping ourselves stimulated and motivated? Those are all things that are part of this process, right? I've spent a lot of time talking about the physiology of menopause, right? Why do we get hot flashes? Why do we have joint pain? Why do we sleep like garbage? Why does our hair fall out? Why do we get frequent UTIs or can get frequent UTIs? Is it a urinary tract infection, or is it genital urinary syndrome of menopause, right? How do we treat that kind of stuff? How do we maintain our muscle mass? Why do we start carrying more belly fat? Why does our cholesterol go up? Like all of that. But I haven't talked at all about, in spite of that, we're at a really cool place in our life, right? We've gone through our 20s and 30s. We're at the point where we're like, listen, I don't give a rip about all the minutia that I cared about in my 20s. Some of us may be at a different point in our professional career, and we're looking at, well, how can we continue to evolve and whether it's do more community service if that's your thing, whether it's learn a new skill, learn a new instrument, get involved in a nonprofit, start a new business, right? These are really big times in our life. And what else are we doing that kind of feeds this evolution of ourselves? So I'd love to hear about that stuff too. What are people out there doing that brings them joy? I don't know why I'm so emotional today, right? That's one of the things. We're so emotionally labile. Like 1 minute we're, wow, what the heck? We have like short temper. I guess I don't know. I'm a little emotional today. What are the things that bring you joy? What are you excited about for this year? There's so much shit going on in the world right now. Where are you finding your peace and your joy? How are you doing that? How are you holding on to some sense of sanity in spite of this swirl that's happening around us? Who are your people? Who are your people? Who supports you? Who lifts you up when you need it? But who supports you? Who lifts you up when you need it? Who's got your back? Those are the things that I haven't spent a lot of time talking about, but it's just as important as we kind of get wiser in our years and we start to go through menopause, perimenopause, and menopause. And it's like, what is the rest of our life going to look like? How are we shaping our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health so that our retirement, if that's in the cards, some of us have to work a lot longer than others, but what are we doing to make the back half, that latter half of our life, just as joyful and high quality as we can? So I'd love to hear that kind of stuff. I do the science really well, and I'd love to hear sort of those softer things. So drop in the comments if you want to pop on, share. I'd love to hear, how you're shaping your life to create kind of the quality and longevity that you want. And again, anybody that's showing the lighter side of menopause, I'd love to know about them as well and follow them and support what they do. Because sometimes you just gotta laugh. Sometimes you just gotta keep it light. Otherwise you go crazy. But yeah, like I said, I don't have much planned. So yeah, tell me what's been working, what you've appreciated through, the menopause series. Are there things in particular that we haven't talked about? One thing I will do probably is, rather than this forum, it might be next week. We'll see what comes up. But at some point, rather than this forum, I'll post a Zoom link, and I want to try our webinar. And a webinar, because it just allows all of us to be on camera together. That's really all it is, right? But I'll post a Zoom link instead of doing a live here. And I want to see what kind of community that creates. Is it any different? Does it allow us to connect on a different level? So I'm going to try that next, one of these weeks, whether it's next time, I hear you, whether it's next time or one other time, to just, give us a chance to see each other. For those that want to be on video, but at least they can be on audio live, just to interact a little bit. And the other thing I want to do is we were talking about it, Wendy, Mo, and myself, I hear you, to all do, like a live together. And just, again, the lighter side of menopause, all the things that we're seeing and what we're going through. And if anybody wants to join, happy to join. Like, this is not just the three of us, right? It's just, how do we make this a little bit, just take the edge out of this thing a little bit? Because sometimes it's, oh my God, it's just nuts. But yeah, so we'll see. Going to try to do some things a little bit differently, see what works for people, continue to kind of find ways to create community and make this special. Mika, anything that I haven't talked about that's burning? Any questions? I said in the beginning, I don't have anything planned today. I normally come with like, yep, here's my thing. I got my topic. We're going to talk some science, and I'm going to try to be, give you some takeaways and all of that. Today's a little bit different. I wanted to be a little bit more casual. So any comments, questions, burning. And then the one request that I made in the beginning was, Mo sent me this lady on Instagram called Just Being Melanie, Melani. I would highly encourage you to follow her. Now I'll come up if that's okay. You want to join? Yeah? I'm happy to have you join. She's hilarious, so you got to follow her. She's great. She's just super, like, just, oh my gosh, her content's hilarious. And it just makes, it talks about the lighthearted side of menopause. Like, what do we care about? What don't we care about? It's really hilarious. Here, I'm going to say yes. Oh my gosh, she's hilarious. She has this what? Good morning.
Hey,
Look
my
at
thing
you.
froze, so I'm half of my screen is
Yes.
like showing the request to join and it's stuck there.
Oh
So
no.
that I almost left and came back. So I can see you though.
Yes, we can
That's
see
the good
you.
thing. I can see you. I don't think there's anything you've missed. I think you've talked about a lot of things, but I think there's just a lot of misconceptions around perimenopause and menopause. I think that a lot of people don't remember that perimenopause goes on for a long time.
Yes. Yes.
And you can also start younger than you would think, and it could carry on for a very long time before you actually hit menopause. And I think that's something that's interesting. I get that a lot because I'm in perimenopause. And once I learned of the symptoms and realized that I wasn't going crazy,
Yeah.
that I calculated it back and I'm like, I've been having these symptoms since I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
That's when I noticed a shift in my weight, a shift in my sleeping, a shift in my mood, and all these things. And when I tell people that, they're like, no.
Yeah.
No. And I think we need to stop saying that
Yep.
to women
Yep.
and to
Yep.
people
Yep.
in general. I think we should just say, oh, really? I've never heard of that
Yep.
before. How did you
Yeah.
know? What were the signs so that we can learn? And I get that. It sounds odd. There's a lot of things in this life that are odd and sound odd.
Yeah.
But if we just ask questions for understanding, we might learn something that we didn't anticipate. Or if you hear it from one person, then you start hearing it from another. And a couple years later, then you're starting to put the pieces together and doing your own natural
For
research and saying, wait a
sure.
second,
Yep.
if this is a thing, then let me do my actual research
For sure.
and see what's going on. So I think I want the community and society to just be more open
Hmm.
to different ages and stages of perimenopause, and that it can start at any age. And then also women doing research within their own family lineage, like
Yeah.
asking your mom, asking your grandma. That's what I did when I started seeing these symptoms. I said, "What? I need to make a phone
Yeah.
call."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I decided, I called
Yeah.
my mom. I'm like, Mom, when did you have your first hot
Yeah. Yeah.
flash?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like 35. And I had my first one, that like big one, at 33. So then I said, okay. And then I started recalling
Yeah.
me and my sibling in Costco with my mom. And all of a sudden she's like running down the aisles, I need soy milk. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm a teenager. I have
Yeah.
no clue what's going on. And she has
For
this
sure.
big Caribbean accent. So you can imagine in
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oregon what type of spectacle that is. Okay. And me and my sibling are just like so embarrassed. And we're just like, what's going on? And she would like tear open a carton of soy milk and she would guzzle down in the middle of the store. And then within
Yeah.
like maybe 10, 15 minutes, she's like, okay, I feel better. And we were like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
she's like, you guys don't understand. She's like, you might understand later. She's like, I needed some estrogen. And I didn't get it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and she didn't do anything. And
Yeah.
and that is another thing that I've learned in this process, is that a lot of women have a lot of secrets,
Hmm.
right? That we've endured over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
just dealt with it, or we talked to our small little tabletop group about it, and it was embarrassing, it was shameful. And I don't think that we should be ashamed of those things, but I also think that we should take advantage of the tools that we have at our fingertips. We
For
have
sure.
advanced healthcare
Sure.
around
Sure.
the world. We
Sure.
have research tools at our fingertips. We have networks of individuals who are now more open to having conversations about it. And I think that's what we need to do. We don't have to be like the generations of old did, where we kept everything inside. That's not healthy to keep everything inside. We've seen what that does to folks' health, on
Hmm.
top of what perimenopause and menopause is doing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you missed any topic per se.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to talk about the overall misconceptions and how we don't have to suffer in silence alone.
Yeah, that is so true. Because you're spot on. It can start super early, right? There's no predefined, time. And even, I see people being told that, oh, if you've still got your period, then you can't be in perimenopause. And we know that's not true, right? That is not true.
No.
So we can't use the lack of a period or the change in the period necessarily as an indication that, oh, now you're in perimenopause. There's a lot of other symptoms. And some symptoms can be subtle, right? Some people are on birth control, not necessarily to prevent pregnancy, they're on birth control for other reasons, but that's estrogen, right? So we're in sometimes, suppressing some of the symptoms because you're on estrogen. That's what's in most cases, that's what's in birth control. So you may have really subtle symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
They may not really manifest themselves as, oh my God, I'm getting this ginormous hot flush or super awful night sweats, but you may start seeing some changes in your hair. Somebody just told me they went to the hairdresser and her hair texture is changing, and her hairdresser was like, oh, that's super common in perimenopause, but she's not having any other symptoms, but
Mm-hmm.
she's also on birth control. So it's like, right, so it's like everything has to be taken in context. And I think you made a valuable point, which is validating people's walk, validating their symptoms, and saying, let me take a beat as a physician. Let me take a beat. Let me dig into this a little bit more, and not just carte blanche saying, oh, well, that just can't be because you're 35 or you're 40 or whatever, right? So yeah, super, super important that things can start very early for some women. And then that usually means their symptoms are going to be worse. So the earlier you start, typically, right?
You don't have to tell me that. You do not have to tell me that. My God, I think something that you said that touched on where I'm going to go with the symptoms that
Yeah.
they can be bad is I think there's also, as much as we need to validate other people's journey and feelings and experiences, I think we also need to have self responsibility.
Mm,
I think self responsibility is huge. I'm huge on self responsibility, and I think it's probably just like a childhood thing because I'm used to people dismissing and not taking accountability and shifting and the blame. And so, because I experienced that a lot early on, I'm all about, well, if you lied, just say you lied and let's make it good and move on now. You
yeah.
know, be
Yeah.
direct or don't say anything at all. And life is just not black and white like that.
Sure.
So what we can do is we can stop and we can evaluate. And I think if we stop and say, whew, I'm feeling a little wiry today.
Mm,
What's going
mm,
on with me? Rather than continuing on with whatever we have to do that day with that same energy.
sure.
Take a beat, take 15 minutes
Yeah.
and check in with yourself and say,
Mm-hmm.
do I feel that way because that situation made me feel
Mm-hmm.
that way? Or am I feeling that way because there's something innate in me going on that I am suppressing and it's coming out in this
Mm,
manner? And I had to do that a lot because I didn't know what was going on. I
yeah.
just was like, everybody was pissing me off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was wrong. Everybody was out of pocket playing games. Everybody was manipulative. And once I realized that, I was just like, is everybody really like that though?
Yeah.
Or is it, I had to look at some
Sure.
things.
Sure.
So once took a step back and took responsibility, then I realized like, okay, yeah, some of those people are wilding. Okay. And sometimes I was
Sure.
wilding. So
Sure. Sure.
it's about self-responsibility. If we want people to validate
Yeah.
what we're going through, if we choose to open up to them,
Yeah.
then we also need to have a level of self-responsibility and
Yeah.
accountability to
Yeah.
say, this is what I think is going on with
Yeah.
me. So now that I've discovered that, what am I going to do with it?
Sure.
What am I going to do about it? How am I going to work through it?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to continue to be the best person that I can be in every single scenario? And that brings me to actually maybe a topic that you haven't discussed because it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a medical type of circumstance with perimenopause and menopause. It's more so of a maybe a psychological, more mental health.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
tangential. Menopause and isolation.
Mm. Mm. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've noticed and I've heard from many women that during this time, because they're just trying to figure everything out, they're trying to find the accountability,
Sure.
they're trying to figure
Sure.
out how
Sure.
they feel, the accountability on that front is like gray. And so they're just like, let me just stay back because I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. And I feel this
Mm.
rage, right? This
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
angst
Yeah.
sometimes, this anxiety, the social anxiety. So that's something that I noticed with me is that I started getting and I'm an introvert, but I present as an extrovert.
Yeah.
And once I started aging and started going through perimenopause, going out in crowds was like not fun for me anymore. When I was in my 20s, I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once I started getting anxiety because I started being my senses were heightened. So like when
Mm-hmm.
you're in your 20s, you're like if someone's staring at you, you don't even
Right.
notice, right? You're just like going on and moving because you're focused on what you want to do and
Sure,
having
sure,
fun.
sure. Yeah.
Once I got up to a certain age, I would just be like, why is that person from across the room? I see you. Why are you looking at me? And then they would just be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that person. And that's part of being a melanated soul living in a non-melanated area. Okay. That's
Correct.
part of it. But when
Correct.
I was in my 20s, I didn't notice it.
Sure.
And now that I'm in perimenopause, I'm so sensitive to it that I started saying, I don't even want to go outside.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the
Yeah.
grocery store, sunglasses
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
started
Yeah.
doing that. And I started realizing that I started getting and I could go into deeper, which I won't, but basically I had very interesting circumstances happening on a regular basis with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was just like, what, I don't know you. Why are you coming up to me at a public place when I didn't even know you
Sure.
existed? And it was happening over and over and over and over. And I started feeling like unsafe and anxiety. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to get my groceries delivered. I started getting everything delivered and only going out if it was business related. And then I started doing it not just among strangers, it was also among friends who did not understand what I was going through.
Mm. Mm.
And I'm hearing that more and more from other women where there's this anxiety socially, there's this anxiety even around people we've known our whole
Yeah.
lives or several
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
and we don't know how to explain it. And then that kind of goes back into what we were saying. When you start to explain it, sometimes the disenfranchising moments and conversations happen, and you're like, well, why did I just share my
Mm.
personal business with you that you wouldn't have otherwise known? But you're saying I'm acting funny. I'm trying to give you a
Sure.
reason, and you're
Sure.
minimizing it because you haven't gone through it yet, or the same way. And then it makes you just be like, well, I'm just going to
Yeah.
shut down and I'm just going
Yeah.
to get through this on my own with my medical professionals and my small group of people
Yeah.
who I
Yeah.
trust. And that is also not healthy.
Sure. 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 Wow, that's powerful. That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think, yeah, when you don't, one, if you don't understand what's happening or if you don't take stock, it can kind of start to, like you're saying, right? Not snowball, but you can start to retreat even further and further and further and further. And we
Mm-hmm.
know for sure, and I think I've seen it as a result of COVID for different reasons, just the complete isolation that COVID created. We're still seeing the manifestations of that, right? We're still unwinding some of the true medical sort of consequences of social isolation aside from mental health. So that's powerful. It happens. You're right. It totally happens where people start to retreat, whether it's from like a sensory overload or again, feelings of anxiety or your mood, just um yeah, you just sometimes you don't want to be bothered and then it
Mm-mm.
just starts to right. It just kind of goes from there. And you look around and you're like, holy moly, I haven't interacted with anybody. And I think if you're in a family, if you're married with kids, that's a different scenario, good or bad, indifferent, who knows. But and or if you're single, that's also a different experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on your social circle. I mean, it can be complicated, but that's a good one. Yeah. Social isolation or menopause and isolation. That's a good
Mm-hmm.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe, who knows, you could do a whole topic on that and invite like a
Mm-hmm.
psychotherapist or a therapist up to discuss
Yeah.
tools to navigate through that
Yeah.
because everyone is going to do it differently. I chose to join a Facebook group that was Paramount Menopause and Menopause, which has like thousands and thousands of women from all over the world because I felt like it was a non-judgment zone, and I still feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are women who will post and they're like, my hips are hurting, or I have really bad joint pain, or I'm having tingling in my extremities,
Yeah.
or I can't sleep for weeks, and no one's saying, well, why didn't you try this?
Sure.
Or why is that happening to you? Or women are in there saying, I've experienced that too, or I'm following this post
Yeah.
because I need a solution as well.
Yep.
Or they're saying, here's what I did, talk with your doctor, or here's a link of what I use. It's a resource
Yep.
and it's a
Mhm.
non-judgment zone, but I'm also seeing some of the despair
Mm.
that women
Mm.
are having, and I think that it almost makes me emotional because I understand that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty positive person, but when you go through this, you get this really weird feeling of like doom and gloom.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
so weird because I used to wake up hitting the ground and the devil would be like, oh, shoot, Mika's up, you know? And I used to feel so on top of the world every day, very strong, powerful, intrinsically
Yeah.
motivated. And all of a sudden, it was I'd wake up and be like, can I go back to sleep, but for like an extended period of time?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, because I know that my disposition towards, like, my outlook has changed, I've had to take a lot of control over that with working out, taking the right herbs and supplements,
Yeah.
and making sure I have the right people in my life too, because not everybody is going to understand what you're dealing with. And there are some friendships where I had to take a
Yeah.
pause and be like, look, I'll talk to you when you're 45, girl. Okay, I'll talk to you when you're 45, and then maybe we can continue this
Sure.
conversation.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. Oh man, I tell you, it's hard when you talk about the despair. I was talking earlier today that there's this lady that this friend sent. On one side there's some levity that I think we can bring to it, or we try. We can use levity and humor as a way to get through this, because it is
Hmm.
maddening at
Hmm.
times, right? It's crazy. So she happens to use humor. Again, my tendency is, okay, let's talk about the science and all of that, and I think everyone's got their place somewhere in the middle there. But making people know, making people understand that, God, you are not alone, you are not crazy, that there's community, there's we feel you, we got you. That's the most important thing. We may not have all the answers, but just knowing that there's people that got you,
Yeah,
and that we get what you're going through,
yeah,
because this is not something to go through alone. It just isn't. It just isn't. And if you're
yeah,
not getting that support, whether it's friends or your physician or your current community, then reaching out and figuring out, okay, where's that community? And I'm so glad you found that Facebook group, because it sounds like it gave you that place that you needed, right? That support, that understanding that, nope, you're not crazy. This shit is real. And
very.
how you navigate some of that. So
Oh,
yeah.
we could talk about sometime on your life. Maybe not me and you, but maybe you, because this is definitely medical. Menopause and the FUPA.
All right. We could do that.
Menopause and moon
And
face.
moon. Oh, that's a good one.
Okay? Because that's another thing. Like, I've always had a super flat stomach, and then all of a sudden I started getting this little something down. And I said, "What? Are you going to introduce yourself, or are you going to show up at the door? Because what is going on?" I was like, this is out of
Yeah,
pocket
yeah,
and out of
yeah,
order. It's
yeah,
out of
yeah,
order for the
yeah.
jeans and the
For the
crop
whole thing.
tops.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
whole thing
Right,
is
right.
out of order. And I think part of self-care is feeling good because you are taking care of yourself. And when you wake up, you get yourself together, and all of a sudden there's an extra
Sure.
friend, or as I
Tag
call a
along.
hater role,
Sure.
you
Sure, sure,
know,
sure. Yeah.
and in Spanish you call it lonja, okay, a little
Right.
lonja back there. And then you feel like you need a faja 24/7, and you didn't need one before, you
Sure,
know?
sure.
And
Yeah.
so that's something to talk about. It's the unexpected, they call it the tire or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have the tire, but there's definitely more that's gathered in the
Yes.
midsection,
Yeah.
um, which is not cute. I fight it
Yep.
daily with
Yep.
several different things, and
Yeah.
it's coming back strong. It keeps coming stronger. I'm like,
Yeah.
goodness.
Yep. Yep.
Ugh,
Yep.
that's frustrating. And I know it's vain, but in society, women have been kind of held, right, to
Oh,
a
sure.
standard. I think a woman with a flat stomach is equate to an older man with a head full of hair.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right? It's that
Yeah,
confidence. I can wear anything, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
that it's different when you see a man with a head full of hair walking into a room as opposed to someone who has maybe lost their, it's different, a different level of confidence sometimes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sometimes. I like a bald head man, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I've seen it and heard it. So there's different things that I think people don't necessarily talk about. It's the FUPA, the moon
yeah.
phase. I've had a friend say that to me one time, a friend I know for like 30 years. She's like,
Uh,
"Oh,
oh,
your your face is bigger and you have
no.
more down there." And I said to myself, I'm like, "Didn't I just tell you what the hell I was going through? I just told
Wow.
you. What the hell you thought?" And she sent me a
Yeah.
video. She sent me a video in my Facebook inbox, like, "Here you go. This is how you can deal with it," basically.
Wow.
And I was just kind of like, I didn't talk to her about moon phase. I didn't talk to her about a FUPA. I just said, "This is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah,
I've been a little bit hormonal." I never talked to her about anything
yeah,
physical. And so for her to make an observation, and then and I was like, wow. I was like, wow. But then if I go to the med spa and fix everything
yeah.
up, that's another
Well,
conversation
sure.
for someone to judge.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
at the end of the day, we just need to do what we need to do
Yes.
for us.
Yes. Yep.
Another one, thinning hair.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the other thing. So we talked like hair loss, but I think there's so much within the texture of our hair, whether it's thinning, the texture changes, it falls out. Yeah. There's a lot that happens to our hair
Yep.
in and around in this. Yeah, for sure. For
And
sure.
there's a term that I heard. It's called hormonal alopecia, I think is what it's called.
There's androgenic alopecia. I don't know if that's what you're referring
I
to.
think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
well, that's probably it. I'm probably wrong because you're the doctor.
Which is the most common, and we talk about it more in the context of men, because
Yeah,
it's so integral to testosterone.
right.
But that's the most common type of hair loss when it comes to, yeah, androgenic alopecia.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But then
also,
again, estrogen plays into that, right? Estrogen plays into DHEA, which plays into testosterone, right? I mean, it's wild. It's wild, the physiology and everything, every system that it touches, every system. Yeah.
mhm, volume loss. So even though you might have a moon phase, you might have volume loss and elasticity loss in other
Yep.
areas.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what do you think about taking collagen products during this time for
Yeah.
women?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I don't, again, from a medical standpoint, there's nothing that says, at least that I've seen, that says things are harmful, that it's harmful. So I don't see a problem with it at all. I think it can be helpful. Um, So the question just becomes, what's the right product? And I haven't done research on my own to say, ooh, this is the one that I like and this is the one that I would hands down recommend. So usually I'm relying on patients to bring it to me, and then that's when I spend the time and I go and I look it up and I say. So there's been a few products actually around hair that a patient brought to me and saying, this is what I'm currently using. So then at that point I dug into the research and I'm like, well, this one's probably okay. This one I don't think it's adding any value, so I wouldn't continue to take that. So I haven't seen, nobody's brought me collagen products yet. So if
Okay,
you have one,
I have two.
okay, send them to me. I'll dig into it. So that's usually
Okay,
what I'll do is when someone brings it to me, then I spend the time and do the research. Yeah, if it's not something I'm already taking myself.
okay. Yeah, I do have two. I think one's a powder form, one's a liquid form. I
Okay.
take a liquid form right now, which has helped a lot with like bloating,
Yeah.
digestion, because you
Okay.
already know that was a huge
Mm-hmm.
touch point for me. I
Mm-hmm.
finally feel like I got that under
That's
control. It was
amazing.
a rough bout. I wouldn't wish it on
Yeah.
my worst
Yeah.
enemy. It was rough, but I feel like I finally got it worked through with a nutritionist and
Yeah.
then with just going back to basics. I know you touched on that a bit
Mm-hmm.
on your live with like digestion and
Mm-hmm.
fiber and how to slowly add that to your diet so you don't
Yep.
overwhelm your system and
Yep.
all of those things. and then that goes back into the responsibility of the individual, right? It's like you got to know yourself, know what works for you, apply
Yep.
it, be consistent, go to the gym, keep your body moving, drink your water,
Yeah.
take your supplements. And there are some days where I wake up and I'm just like, do I have to do all of this stuff again just to
No.
be basic
I
and
know.
functional?
I know. It can be overwhelming. It really can, right? It can be.
Yes.
I think that's the one thing I'm also noticing is that it's work. It's work. It is work and it's a daily commitment to the work. Um, but that doesn't listen, some days you just don't get it done and that's okay too, right? We can't fire on all cylinders every single day 24/7. So we need to also give ourselves a little bit of grace. There's no absolute. There's no, if today's look, I just don't have it, and that's okay. Because it takes a lot of work. I'm finding, at least for me, it's taking a lot of work to just maintain, much less if you're trying to like stack things on top. Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah,
effort. It
it
ain't
is.
easy.
When I was in my
Not
20s,
easy.
you
For
get
me,
out the
it's
bed and
not.
just
Maybe
go.
for some, they're like, oh, I got this dialed in. It's no problem. But that is not my walk. It is not my walk right
No,
now.
it's also because I think for me anyway, the sleep,
Yeah.
right? I don't get my sleep isn't consistent. So if I slept good, I can wake up at 5 a.m., get to the gym by 6:30, be home, by 8,
Yeah.
get ready for work, log in at 9, right? But if I slept horribly,
Yeah.
by the time I wake up, I just feel like someone beat my tail in the
Sure.
night. And
Sure.
then I'm just like dragging myself, peeling myself out of the bed like a
Yeah.
banana. And then I'm just like, I can't do it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dang, it's Wednesday. I need to hit the gym. I need to hit at least
Sure.
3 days. So, and then I put that pressure, but it is a lot. There are a lot of times where I cut down the routine where I'm just
Mm.
like, okay, I'm just doing half of it. Like you
Yeah.
said, just do what you can. But also, ooh, a good topic would be menopause and maybe those women who are still raising children. Like,
Ooh.
could you imagine how your demeanor towards your child or your
Mm.
children could change? Like, even just your motherly instinct could potentially change during that time. Like, you could look at your child with hard eyes, and all of a sudden, during this time, you're looking at them with the devil emoji. I mean, I don't know because I don't have
Yeah.
children. But I could only imagine if I was going through what I'm going through, feeling all the feels that I feel very deeply, and then having a little person with eyeballs looking up to me for support, for food, for everything. I couldn't. I don't know. God would give me the strength, but I know it would be challenging. So I think that's something that would be a good topic to discuss.
Yes. And yeah, I'm getting like, oh my gosh, because it's true. That was one of the first things I noticed that my temper. Um, and I was like, I'm not the kind of person I want to be to my kids and to my spouse. And
Hmm.
yeah.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's tough for all of us, and we all have a different journey with
Yep.
it. And I do commend those women who have children just to be a mother at all, and then to be a mother and go through it. And I'm gonna crack a joke at my friend. My friend, she had a child in her late 30s, and her child is like 4 now. And I go over to her house, and the child's everywhere. Okay. And at one point I looked, I said, wait a second. I said, girl, I said, I don't know how you do it
Yeah.
because I'm about to go home. And she said, girl, I know. And then
Right.
she's not going through the change yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it made me think. I said, if I'm going through this now, and what if I had a 4-year-old right now?
Right.
I
Yeah.
said, I don't know what type of mother I would
Yeah.
be. And then it started making me think, well, God gave her that child at the point where she wasn't going through the change because
Mm-hmm.
God already knew it was going to be overwhelming for her
Yeah.
then. And so now she's going to go through it later when the child's older, more autonomous. So God gives us what we need when we need it, is
Yeah.
what I believe.
Yeah.
And He also gives us the realization and the self reflection when we need
Yeah.
it. And that's also what I think is the key takeaway for me during perimenopause.
Yeah.
It's actually the most self reflective point in my life that I've ever been. And I think it's because the feelings are so deep
Yeah. Yeah.
that I don't have a choice
But
but to,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to figure out what these feelings are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so overwhelming, they're
Yeah.
so strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank God that I have the time and the energy at times
Sure.
to explore them.
Yeah.
So that's the blessing about this
Sure.
change on top of where we are in society with the technology that we have.
Yeah. 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 I'm so glad you jumped on today, Mika.
Oh, well,
Thank
thank you. I didn't
you.
mean to push the button at first. And then I didn't. I was trying to chat
Yeah.
and then it said request. And I said, oh, shoot. And I couldn't cancel
Yeah.
it. And then I was like, no, 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 I don't want to come up because I didn't know what we were talking about. And then when you asked the question, you said it was very casual. I said, oh, okay, well, then we can have a casual conversation.
Yeah. No, today was just, I didn't have anything planned. I'm like, look, we're just going to keep it light today. So this is perfect. So now we got some things. I got some things to look into, things for next time. So I appreciate you, as
I
always.
appreciate
It's-
you. Great to see you. I'm
You
glad you came
too.
back from your trip. I saw all that movement and I said, my goodness.
Oh, man, that one, that was tough. That was tough. But that's good. You got to challenge the system. I'm a firm. I always tell my patients, I will not do something. I won't tell you to do something and I'm not willing to do myself. So if I'm going to nudge people to push themselves and test the system and, try to be a little uncomfortable all the time, then I got to do it
That's,
myself. And well,
that's
that
right.
was freaking uncomfortable. So
But you
I
made
got
it.
that. Yeah, but I made it. It was fun though.
You
It was
made
fun.
it.
Have a fantastic week, my friend.
You too.
Thank you as always.
Thank you.
And if not sooner, Thursday next week. All right.
Talk
Take care.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.